And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents, and welcome back to my channel. As always, I feel like it's been too long since we've had a stream, but with the TikTok ban and Donald Trump just being re-inaugurated into office as our 47th and 45th president, I felt there's a lot going on in the world that's worth talking about. And we had thought my other co-host, Night Shift, would be late, but he is here. So, Night Shift, hello.
Yo, what's up?
Not much. So
What's up,
I am...
dude?
It's been far too long, but I am joined by Night Shift 10,000 and the Dark Conservatarian, so this is sure to be a pretty awesome stream.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Hope you all are staying warm out there, especially you, Night Shift, all the way up in your Idaho state there.
All the way up in Idaho where it is freezing. I'm right now in my car. I am warm, thankfully, but the second I go outside, it's like a popsicle.
Okay, so if you're in your car, I presume on the dashboard it has a little thing that'll tell you what the temperature is outside. Night Shift?
Hello?
All right, if he's in his car, he might be driving. And
Yeah, it's like 27 degrees out there.
27 degrees.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
boy.
it.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be lower because it says it should be like 15 or something on my phone.
Oh, really? Oh, that might be the temperature that's going to be tonight. I don't know. It's going to drop really low here in Idaho. I know that.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
it
as
says
I've mentioned,
11.
As I've mentioned before, I live in the South. I moved here in part, not entirely, but in part to try and escape cold temperatures. And even we are going through some pretty cold temperatures right now. Not quite to the extent of Night Shift, but honestly, for him being in Idaho and me being like down in the Southeast U.S., it's not that much different, which tells you we got a cold wave nationwide.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I know I did do one. I had a guest on my stream last time, Upward Thought, and I wished everyone happy holidays then, but I know I haven't been able to talk to either of you on stream since. So I hope you guys had a great holiday season and have had a great start to the new year. But with that, it is New Year. And as everyone knows, this morning, Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th president after a break with the illustrious Joe Biden, who I'm sure is a very happy man right now. He gets to spend the rest of his life, what little of it will be, I'm sure, sipping martinis on a beach in Delaware somewhere and forever claiming, not proving, but claiming, if they had just not pulled me out and allowed me to run against Trump, we would have won. But my party forced me out and Kamala lost. So that is my prediction for the future of Joe Biden. If anyone disagrees,
say martinis, I would have predicted that he'd be eating pudding or something instead.
I guess probably his wife will be sipping a martini while hand feeding him pudding, while his son lays next to him doing cocaine.
Right. That's that. It's just like every happy family does, right?
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I did want to analyze Donald Trump's welcome back speech, but we will get to that. I know the original reason we called this stream is because it looked like for a while there, TikTok was going to formally get banned in the United States. So to give everyone the background on this, TikTok, I'm sure everyone's well aware, but TikTok is an extremely popular app. I have no idea why I don't use it. It just it strikes me as total brain rot. I did have an account for looked at it, but it's just unlike, a platform like YouTube or X where you can be silly on it, you can be serious, use it to spread information. It seems to me TikTok is mostly people dancing in their underwear and other nonsense like that. But in any case,
probably the ratio of cancer to substance is a whole lot closer or unbalanced on TikTok than it is on X or Facebook or anyone else like that. Anywhere else.
Of course, the controversy. Go ahead.
Well, on that note, I would say Facebook is a lot worse than TikTok. I mean, Facebook is the worst, but maybe that's just my opinion. I don't know.
Okay. I will admit I don't have a Facebook. I haven't used Facebook. When I was in high school, which was amazingly, 20 years ago now, but not quite 20 years, but almost. Facebook was just becoming a thing. It was super popular, but I have not used Facebook since then.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, though, so of course the controversy about TikTok is that it's owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, and of course, in the People's Republic of China, all private corporations, the Chinese have a very fascist-like economy that is rapidly shifting towards full-blown communism. In that there are some private corporations in China, but all corporations, whether state-owned or private. The Communist Party in China reserves the right at any time to nationalize any private company, and private companies can be coerced to work with the government and hand over all user data. So the big controversy was, it came out that ByteDance more or less admitted that if you have TikTok, they are monitoring on your phone. They are monitoring everything on your phone, to include text messages you're sending, things like that. And all that they can and will release to the Chinese government. So, of course, the U.S. saw this as a huge national security concern. I know ever since this came out, if you are a government employee and you have a government-owned device, TikTok cannot be on your phone. I mean, there are certain government jobs that if you are an employee of the U.S. government, you are not allowed to use TikTok or have TikTok, for obvious reasons, that even if it's my personal phone, if I'm texting about something work-related and I have TikTok, the Chinese government may well be in possession of that. So, and eventually it came to the federal government saying, we want to ban TikTok in the United States. Well, of course, that resulted in a lawsuit claiming the defendants, of course, the people who wanted TikTok to be preserved, saying that that's the government meddling in private business affairs. It's not allowed under the Constitution. There are those that argued it was a violation of the First Amendment. Either way, the U.S. Supreme Court ultimately weighed in, and they said that the ban was constitutional. And the reason they said it was constitutional is because strictly speaking, the government wasn't saying that they were going to ban TikTok for being TikTok. What they were saying is TikTok could either divest of Chinese ownership. In other words, ByteDance could sell TikTok to an American proprietor, in which case, and hand over the algorithm and the source code and all that, and then it would be allowed to operate. Or if they refuse to do that, then they would shut it down in virtue of it being a national security concern and therefore under the purview of the federal government.
Kind of emphasizing the point that a foreign citizen does not have rights in our country.
Yes, exactly. Now, however, although this went into effect for like 12 hours, Donald Trump, who was about to take the White House as of yesterday, announced that he intended to issue an executive order that would essentially stay the ban until he can come out. And I believe as of right now, and here, I got an article here. Let's pull it up.
Yeah, he did like a TikTok flip-flop. Originally, he was for most of his first term. Sorry.
So Trump said Sunday in a Truth Social post, this is CNN, the Communist News Network, so no friend of Donald Trump, but they're nonetheless reporting it. Trump said Sunday in a Truth Social post that he plans to issue an executive order following his inauguration on Monday to extend the period of time before the law's prohibition takes effect so that we can make a deal to protect our national security. He urged TikTok's partners to allow the app to be restored, saying the order will also confirm that there will be no liability for any company that helped keep TikTok from going dark before my order. Americans deserve to see our exciting inauguration on Monday, as well as other events and conversations, Trump said. So in other words, it sounds like he wanted TikTok users who would be posting TikToks about his inauguration. He didn't want those to not get shared on TikTok. So for that reason, at least, he is staying the ban, saying that he's not necessarily saying he's not going to ban it, but he wants to, I guess, give further time for them to either divest of Chinese ownership or one way or another come up with a deal to ban, to that we can keep TikTok well addressing the federal government's legitimate national security concerns.
Well, and even what I heard about the whole TikTok ban and Trump kind of flip-flopping on it is that Trump actually even wanted to nationalize TikTok. So we go from basically having Chinese spies to American spies in the CIA on the app. So, yeah, I mean, but that's what I heard, is that he wanted to nationalize it. He actually wanted to nationalize TikTok. I was saying this before the election. I was saying this before, when I heard about the TikTok ban going into place. A lot of those justices on the state Supreme Court that actually, that wanted to get rid of TikTok, that wanted to ban it, a lot of them were either put there by Trump or could be swayed by Trump. Mike, you can call this a conspiracy theory if you will, but my theory was that Trump actually manufactured this whole thing But basically, behind closed doors, basically saying to these justices, ban it so I can write it and save it. And and basically this is Trump kind of fulfilling that, making it look like he's a hero when really he might have been the one that actually started it, when he really might have been the one to actually, put all of this in order. And now that, he's become the hero on the white horse, he's going to use that to try and influence the owners of TikTok into either selling or coming up with some kind of way to make TikTok more secure for the United States. That's at least my conspiracy theory on it. That's at least the way I'm seeing it, is that Trump may have actually, behind closed doors, may have actually manufactured this, so he could actually look like a hero. But I don't know. I'm not sure if that actually holds up.
And even if he does ultimately decide that, yeah, we're going to go ahead and ban it or divest, was the other alternative that 2 Cents mentioned. He wanted it to happen underneath the time of his term actually starting, so that he could actually take credit for it instead of Biden. And on the whole spying issue, I mean, doesn't NSA already spy on a lot of our online postings and everything else, regardless of whether or not that TikTok is actually owned by the U.S. government or not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Edward Snowden already exposed that. We already saw under the Biden administration, since Elon Musk purchased Twitter and then retooled it as X, he released all kinds of internal files that showed that the FBI was regularly meeting with the owners of Twitter, telling them what they had to censor, hand over user data, that kind of thing. So we already know the U.S. government absolutely spies on its own citizens, utilizing whatever platforms it has available, whether that's social media or your phone, anything else. So it's not a question. That's not even a question. Of course, the U.S. spies on it, conducts espionage operations. Now, I will say it makes sense that the U.S. wants to be able to keep tabs on its own citizens, but it does not want a foreign adversary like the Chinese to be able to keep on spying on its own citizens. That makes perfect sense. However, I think as I think you're more or less implying, Darkon, it is rather hypocritical that on one hand, the federal government wants to pass laws that allow it to keep tabs on its citizens, but wants to actively stop. Basically, no party in this is saying it's wrong to spy on people. The only argument is who should we allow to spy on who, based on, and that's determined entirely by whose interests are at stake. Of course, the U.S. wants to further its interests, and the Chinese want to further theirs.
So it seems that either way, that the U.S. government is going to end up spying on our media regardless. I think that a lot of the issue with all the people that want to ban it, and FYI, people, I'm sympathetic towards the position. I mean, I guess you can say that I'm overall ultimately kind of unsure on what my position is, whether I'm for or against it, but I'm definitely sympathetic towards the people who want to ban it. But I guess the angle that they're coming at it is that specifically they don't want the Chinese to be spying. They don't like the idea that the American government would be spying on us, but the idea of the Chicoms spying on us, it just sets even worse with them than U.S. government doing so.
Okay, and what I'd say here is, I think two things can be true at once. I would say, I'm going to say, and this is my opinion, it's my 2 cents, take it for what it's worth. I happen to think if everyone in America stopped using TikTok, that would probably be a net benefit for society. I mean, whether or not you like TikTok, it's generally a waste of time. And generally the content on there is just mind rotting. Like I said, people dancing in their underwear and other stupid stuff that you shouldn't be wasting your time on anyways. That being said,
and point.
Okay, go ahead.
And on that point, if I may, one of the arguments that all the pro-ban people bring up, other pro-ban people keep on bringing up, is of how much brain rot that TikTok provides, so as to that it shortens people's attention spans and whatnot. I don't in any ways doubt those claims at all. I kind of grant the benefit of the doubt that they are true, but I don't necessarily see that as a good argument for banning it, because that seems to be a thing that is happening regardless with even American owned media. For example, I don't know if Coco Melon, like the YouTube channel Coco Melon, is actually based in America or in the West in general, but that's another brain rot, attention span shortening and destroying piece of media out there, or well, whatever. And yet I don't think that that should be banned.
Exactly, and I think even if I happen to believe that society would probably be better off not using it, here's the danger, and this is part of why I'm a libertarian. If you accept that the federal government should ban TikTok because TikTok is bad for the American populace, it's bad for the Chinese to know what our citizens are doing, even though I'd say at this point every American who uses TikTok is fully aware that their data is in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. I would just say the vast majority of them don't care. Now, the federal government would want to then step in and say, well, we don't care that you don't care. We know what's best for you. And what's best for you is that your data not be in the hands of the Chinese government. Now, if you accept that as an argument, you have inherently accepted the argument that it is the right and proper function of government to decide what's better for you than you. And regardless of how badly you disagree, the government has the right to tell you, look, tough, we know what's better for you than you do. You have to do what we say. So my question then is, what's going to happen the next time the government decides that your favorite thing, I mean, for all the hardcore religious Christians out there, what are you going to do when the government decides, as it may well could, that the Bible is a book full of dangerous ideas and you shouldn't be allowed to read it? As interestingly enough, is what the Chinese government currently, if you live in China, that is the position of the Chinese government. The Bible is a dangerous book full of dangerous ideas, and you shouldn't be reading it. Or the Quran, or the Book of Mormon, or heck, if you're an atheist, if you want to read the works of Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens, what happens when the government decides those are dangerous ideas and you shouldn't be allowed to have them? Once you've set this precedent that it is the right and proper function of government to decide what's best for you as opposed to you have no leg to stand on the next time the government decides they want to ban something that you don't want banned. So I think the principle always needs to be, if the government wants to ban, or if you want to stop someone from doing something else, you have to first show how you are being specifically harmed by what they are doing in the privacy of their own home. If you can't argue how you are being specifically harmed, then you don't have a right to tell them they can't do it, regardless of how strongly you feel they're harming themselves, and they may well be.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, just to kind of correct myself a little bit earlier. Well, not necessarily correct, but just back myself up. Coco Melon is owned by Moonbug Entertainment, and it's based in the UK. Just a note to everybody else. And as far as that position goes, with the whole idea of, I'm just going to stop my camera. With the whole thing of, God, what am I trying to say? I don't think it. Sorry, I'm a little bit embarrassed right now.
Well, that's fine. Go ahead and gather your thoughts. Night Shift, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Hello, Night Shift.
I'll remind everyone, Night Shift said he is in his vehicle right now, so it might take him a little while.
I'm at home, so what was that?
Well, I just said Darkon lost his train of thought. Was there something you wanted to add to the conversation?
No, but I am kind of proud of my state of Idaho, because they actually voted that they didn't want to ban TikTok. And I mean, you're probably right. It's I mean, if people didn't use it, it'd be a net positive, but it's a social media platform. It does fall under the guise of free speech, freedom of expression, and I'm very proud of my state for voting no on it. So I mean, even if it would be a net positive that we shouldn't, probably shouldn't use it, it doesn't mean that yeah, I'm with you guys on that. It doesn't mean that the government should put that forward. They should be cutting that off.
Now, here's something that I thought was extremely. Go ahead, Dark. If you remember where you're going, Darkon, go ahead.
Yeah, I more or less do. I don't think that people are coming at it purely from people's own good kind of a position, but also, well, maybe there's a little bit of that, but also in combining with the position that it's not just that, to make sure that people are doing stuff for their own good, but also because the fact that it's like exclusively owned by a foreign adversary. I mean, I don't think I find the idea of like banning the Bible as quite equivalent to the idea of banning TikTok. It's not like the Bible is like a tool that is owned exclusively by one foreign actor like that of TikTok being owned by a Chinese CCP company in, well, China.
Yeah, and that actually segues pretty good into what I was going to bring up next. What I thought was funny, and again, honestly, it's pretty stupid, but it is still funny that a lot of big name creators, such as Candace Owens, who everyone who's been around my channel for a while knows I absolutely despise Candace Owens, but upon the announcement that TikTok was getting banned, they started downloading a different app called Red Note, which is also a Chinese app. However, unlike TikTok, which is owned by a private Chinese company, which by extension is owned by the Chinese government, Red Note is apparently an app that was created explicitly by and for the Chinese Communist Party. So they stopped using TikTok only to go to an app that is explicitly and deliberately created by and owned by the Chinese government. So in banning TikTok, the government actually put many users towards an app that is, by their own definition, even worse.
Oh
that
my God.
Actually be next in all their positions. Although, if I was to put forth my opinion, I think that what should probably be more prioritized than banning like foreign-owned social medias like TikTok and Red Note is probably the banning of foreign citizens buying land within our country, like Chinese companies buying off land in the U.S.
Exactly. So, and that's a great point, Darkon. It's extremely hypocritical that on one hand you're saying the Chinese shouldn't be allowed to influence our citizenry, but they should apparently be allowed to purchase large swaths of land within our country.
Well, depending who you're talking about, I don't think it's necessarily hypocritical. I think it might be both. I mean, I don't know if I should like mention his name, but I definitely know that my good old friend of the channel, Loudmouth Reviews, is of the position that both should be banned.
What this whole thing reminds me of is the government illegalizing marijuana. So the government illegalized marijuana because, they were influenced by billionaires that didn't like it. And so people started smoking spice. Now, marijuana, to our knowledge, does not cause any kind of damage to the body or anything like that. It's not like alcohol. It's not like tobacco. It's not like cocaine. At the very
least, whatever damage it causes is not even as bad as alcohol, and alcohol is perfectly legal.
Exactly. But here's the thing about it. The government illegalized it, so people started smoking spice or kava kava, things that do cause a lot of physical harm to the body and to the brain.
Smoking
and
spice
it's exactly
like melange.
Yes, exactly. It's it's very much reminiscent of that. Basically, they banned TikTok, one that, the company that was not completely directly owned by the Chinese government, but may have had ties to it. And then they pushed people into a service that was completely owned by the government of China. So it's almost exactly like that. When the government bans shit, it never ends well.
Exactly. I would say, honestly, if Donald Trump's administration truly believes that dangerous narratives are being presented on TikTok, their goal should be to create an American competitor to TikTok that is better, that people will willingly want to use, and that and invest in refuting the false narratives you believe the Chinese are putting out, and doing everything you can to make sure Americans get the other side of the story. I mean, that, in my opinion, is going to be far more effective at countering Chinese narratives than just trying to ban something. I mean, if experience shows you, what do they call it? The Streisand effect. When you try to ban something, it only makes people want it more.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, on that note, so I guess we'll see what comes of the whole TikTok ban thing, but that pretty much wraps up the issue there. Of course, government is going to do what government thinks is best. So I have no doubt that whether Donald Trump goes along with it or not, the federal government as a whole is probably going to will try in some sense to ban TikTok, or at least pressure them into selling to divesting of Chinese ownership and selling to a U.S. company. But of course, it's never, as we mentioned, whether it's the war on drugs or anything else, government efforts to solve these problems generally only make them worse. So on that note, let's talk then about the inauguration of Donald Trump. Now, first, I actually did watch the inauguration. Darkon was letting me know he has not seen it yet. Night Shift, did you watch the inauguration?
I only watched the very end of it. I didn't get up in time. I had a very late night last night, and I didn't get up until like really late in the morning, so I only really got the end of it. But I did hear about it. I heard a lot of hilarious things. Donald Trump himself has said that he is going to make it so the U.S. government only recognizes two genders. There was a bunch of other entertaining stuff within it, and I just, I could hear the autistic screeching of the lefties and the woke jokes from here, from miles around. So,
and on that note, I gotta say, again, I'm a libertarian. I have a lot of problems with Donald Trump. I have a lot of problems with what he did in his first administration, and I have no reason to think he's not going to do similar things in this administration. That being said, part of you just can't help but like Donald Trump in his I don't give an F type attitude. Just the fact that he says what he means, and he's not afraid of offending people. And even if I was convinced he was the devil incarnate, which I'm not, but even if I was, you can't help but like the guy for the fact that he's the constant stank face he has, the way he tells off the media and foreign press. You can't help but like the guy for that. So at least good on him for that, and thus it was quite entertaining. And for it, as I think Damien Wooten has said, I don't like Trump, but I do like to collect liberal tears. Absolutely, Donald Trump pisses off all the people I hate, and for that respect, and in that respect, I can't help but like him. All right. So that being said, let's take a look at some tidbits here from Donald Trump's inaugural speech. So he starts by, addressing all the people in the audience, all the former presidents that are there. It was interesting. President Obama was there alone. Michelle Obama, all the other former presidents had their spouses with them. Obama was alone. Now, it was said that Michelle Obama didn't come in protest of Donald Trump, but there are also rumors that the Obamas are having some marital strife. So I guess do with that what you will. But Donald Trump says the golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. Well, on that first paragraph, I'm going to say glorious, in virtue of the fact that every other nation has at least seen that for the past 4 years, we've had a brain dead vegetable as our president, and God knows who's actually running the country. So if nothing else, Donald Trump certainly can't do any worse than a man who was literally brain dead and senile.
Yeah, I agree. He says from this day forward, like if for the rest of eternity or the rest of the existence, America will be like respected. Like I really don't like this over cockiness that a lot of presidents will say within their rhetoric and whatnot. It's like you do know that there's still a counterparty that exists within the country, right? And eventually they will become have somebody from their party put in as president, and they will like at least undo some of the stuff that you have done before, right? I mean, even if Trump was to fix the country in some way or another, some future Democrat president will make the country look kind of weak as far as military imposition or as some kind of influence goes.
Definitely, it's cocky, but hey, again, not everyone can get away with that. Donald Trump, that is his personality, so there's not much you can say about that. All right, so let's see. He's going to end the weaponization of the Justice Department, which, as a victim of it himself, I hope he follows through on that.
Yeah.
America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. Let's see. What am I looking? I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously. You can go watch the speech yourself. I want to find some of the tidbits here. All right, fails to protect. Okay, so of course this was one of the big campaign issues. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders, or more importantly, its own people. Now, of course, the topic of immigration always comes up, and this is something that I will find there's a lot of infighting in libertarians about who really is libertarian when it comes to the issue of immigration. Now, I've talked about my position on this before, and I take a more nuanced position in that, as a libertarian, I don't believe in state-enforced immigration restrictions. In basic principle is, if you want to move somewhere and the government has no business telling you can't do that. So long as all parties involved are consenting to it. Now, however, do I believe there is an immigration crisis? There is, but it's one that is by and large created by government, as are most problems. And the issue I see that we have in America that really has been created by immigration is that the people coming to there was a time in American history where a lot of immigrants flooded in. They received absolutely no support from non-governmental organizations or government welfare programs. They came to America because to live the American dream. They came primarily for economic opportunity because they believed that if they came to America and worked hard, they stood to prosper more than if they stayed in their own country. And if you look at the history of human migration anywhere, that's really all it comes down to. I mean, there are various things here and there that people add, religious reasons, political reasons, but when push comes to shove, people don't move unless they believe they have there's economic opportunity where they're going. However, we have huge classes of people that are coming to America, not necessarily because they believe that if they work hard, they'll succeed, but because they've seen that politicians like Joe Biden and others, and with the help of politically backed non-governmental organizations and liberal state governments like the city of Los Angeles, New York, and other such, and federal government officials like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, that if I go to the United States, I can obtain victim status, obtain wealth, I'll be put up in Chicago. They're closing down public schools to put up illegal immigrants in there for housing, having their food provided for by the taxpayers of the local residents, and then essentially come to America and the American taxpayer will pay for all your problems. Now, that sounds like a pretty good deal to many people, but of course, that's not real economic immigration. That's people that are coming because they've been promised that the other people's money will be stolen to pay for their problems. And further, what many states like California that want to ban voter ID laws want to do so specifically so that people they're essentially paying to come into the country will then vote to keep them in power. Now, that is a huge issue, but as you can see, it's not an issue caused by immigration per se. It's an issue caused by government and its power to steal from its own citizens and then give them to non-citizens in order to keep themselves in power. So I would say I am against immigration restrictions in general, but Donald Trump is right that there's a crisis, and it's a crisis that was caused by the federal government. So until such time as we completely abolish the welfare state and all that,
yes,
it happens. You do, logically speaking, immigration restrictions are immoral and welfare is immoral, but you can't get rid of immigration restrictions unless you first get rid of welfare.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically my opinion on the issue. I don't know if anyone has any other points they'd like to add.
No,
that's same.
That's pretty much my basic stance nowadays. Is that I would like, in theory, like a more loose immigration policy, like more libertarian leaning kind of a policy in that way. But first, let's don't put the cart before the horse, and let's take back welfare first.
Exactly.
And I will say it is absolutely true. It's an insult. Like everyone knows the Laken Riley situation. So Laken Riley was a young, beautiful college student. And of course, this became national news because she was kind of hot. Let's face it. The more attractive the woman who was killed, the bigger the national news story it is. But that aside, a female college student in Georgia was murdered by an illegal immigrant. And as it turned out, that illegal immigrant had already been arrested multiple times in the United States and was essentially just let go. And like her parents said, like if he was illegally in the country and he'd been arrested, why wasn't he already deported? And the answer is because leftist politicians want people like that in the country. And I would argue they're even willing to tolerate crimes from those kind of people more so than they would from longtime American citizens, specifically because they know illegal immigrants are more likely to help to vote for and hold up their power. So
did you hear about the one bill that was proposed in Congress a few months ago that would have like cracked down heavier on specifically rapists and other kind of domestic abuse type of or illegal immigrants who are guilty of domestic abuse, and 150 Democrats voted against that?
Exactly, because again, their concern is not about morality or keeping people safe or about wasting American tax dollars. They're worried about keeping themselves in power. the Democratic, and I think it was John Fetterman who was on the Joe Rogan show. He more or less admitted this, that I don't think he intended to give this away, but you listen to what he says and he basically gives it away, that the Democratic election strategy is promise welfare to anybody who comes into the United States. Tons of people flood into the United States. Get rid of voter ID laws and basically make it impossible to make sure that only American citizens are voting, and thereby import massive amounts of voters who then vote for more Democrats. That essentially is their election strategy.
It wouldn't surprise me if he was taking the same path as that, what's his face, Senator M, the last name starts with an M, from West Virginia, I think anyways, of where that he's going to be one of those more centrist-y Democrats that, wants to be a mediator within the Senate. I mean,
Blue Dog Democrats or whatever you call them. Joe
Democrat.
Manchin, is that who you're talking about?
Joe Manchin. Yeah, that was who. I don't know why I was thinking. Anyway, take more of his position on a lot of things. I mean, there was like him coming out, I think, about what the issue was, coming out more and more for Israel a few months like after he had got elected, after he had like suffered another stroke or something.
Okay, that I'm not sure what you're referring to there.
Well, I thought he was like when he was taking some more right-wing stance on an issue as opposed to what he was campaigning on as far as that issue goes, during his campaign. And I think it might have been the issue of Israel maybe was the thing, or might have been something else.
Okay, just quickly, there are two comments I want to address. Baron Von Brass says, if Lincoln Riley, and I'm going to assume he meant Laken Riley, had been a man, do you think there would have been the same press? Absolutely not. That got as much press as it did. One, because of the issue, and two, because Laken Riley was a hot young woman. Then, two, and Damian Wooten says, when your policies suck so much that you have to import people to vote for you. Yep, that's basically the Democratic Party's election strategy. All right, moving on with the rest of Donald Trump's inauguration. So he talks about the education system being all messed up, and it is. I honestly hope he shuts down the Department of Education. He probably won't, but he should. Talks about how he was almost assassinated, and how the Biden administration did everything they can to try to keep him out of office with lawfare. Go ahead, Darkon.
Very quickly, to kind of back up what I was saying, this is from Politico. Veterans break from the left excites Republicans. The Pennsylvania Democrat is straying from liberal orthodoxy on the border, and Israel giving GOP colleagues hope that he might keep surprising them.
Okay.
That was all that I wanted to read.
Okay. On that note, I think Fetterman is relatively pro-Israel compared to a lot of Democrats. That is
so.
True.
I was remembering it right.
Yes, you are. Talks about the Remain in Mexico policy that basically goes along with what we were just talking about. He wants America to start drilling for oil again, which, of course, from a free market standpoint, is absolutely a great idea. The more the more countries you have producing oil, the more oil there is in the market. The more there is in the market, gas prices go down. That's basic supply and demand. So, brilliant, Mr. President. When I think he says drill, drill, drill somewhere in here. Absolutely, drill, drill, drill.
Well, here's my thing. Why doesn't he just privatize education?
Why doesn't he just privatize education?
Why doesn't he just privatize it? Because, I mean, I was looking that up. Private schools cost less than public schools. How? Like, what the hell? God damn, no.
He needs to take a page out of Javier Milei. I know Donald Trump has met Javier Milei, and as an aside, me and Night Shift did a stream about him back when he was elected. Javier Milei is the first ever, so far as I can tell, legitimately self-identified anarcho-capitalist who was elected to public office. He came in promising to slash and destroy government agencies. He did, and Argentina just had its first budget surplus in like 14 years, and inflation is going down. So Javier Milei is proof that the free market works, and libertarians have been right all along. Donald Trump needs to take a page out of his playbook.
Amen.
On that note, so let's get to this next part. So he talks about the American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before. To restore confidence and effectiveness to our federal government, my administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. Now, this is the controversial. This isn't exact. From what I understand, this isn't an official government agency per se. But basically, Trump has brought on Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, And they've been allowed to hire other individuals to help them. And basically their job is going to be to make recommendations to Donald Trump about what government programs and offices he should put an end to because it's wasteful spending. Now, Night Shift, you are absolutely right. He should destroy the Department of Education and privatize it entirely. I hope the Department of Government Efficiency recommends just that. We will see what exactly the Department of Government Efficiency actually recommends. Now, the question is, how much taxpayer funds will the Department of Government Efficiency itself use? Because if it uses excessive amounts, it becomes counterproductive. And two, will it actually recommend shutting down many of these useless government aid divisions? I like the idea in principle. Now, will I know it's in a very dangerous fashion this could backfire? It absolutely could. But at least in principle, shutting down and closing the doors of useless government agencies is absolutely a great idea.
I was just thinking about it. I thought it'd be the funniest thing. I know it's not going to happen, but I just thought it'd be hilarious if the Department of Government Efficiency comes back and basically just tells Trump, just get rid of the entire government, just get rid of every single agency in the entire government, just get rid of the whole goddamn thing because it's all useless. That would be a dream come true. I would have thought that'd be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. Absolutely.
Yes. So speaking of setting up things that are not necessarily within the jurisdiction of the public sector, did either of you two guys hear about him? Like, I don't know if hiring is the right word, but reaching out to people like Sylvester Stallone and I believe Mel Gibson and some other third actor to be like envoys of his towards Hollywood to make Hollywood great again or something like that. I
vaguely heard something about that. I don't think it was from any kind of official source though.
I'm not so sure how true exactly it was. I know that my grandma was at least spouting it as a fact, as if that is something that he's doing. And I don't necessarily doubt it, but if he is if in fact he is, that is actually something that he is doing. He's like stretching his political capital kind of thin. Even if he's not like taking any legislative action to say, to put in legislation to sell Lucasfilms back to George Lucas or something like that, for example, or ban feminist films from being further produced, he's still kind of stretching his political capital a little bit too much, and unnecessarily too, rather, because there's already like a bit of a backlash towards leftist Hollywood, or at least more blatantly leftist Hollywood, and it's showing in the box office receipts too, of how that the people are did not see the Marvels, for example, and so forth.
Definitely, which I think does bring up this next paragraph here. So this week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from the military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be free to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military in the world. Now, he talks about the military in the end here, but I do think he's absolutely right in that if any private business wants to succeed, you have to prioritize merit, not race, gender, etc. If it turns out that white men happen to be the highest, go ahead.
Guess who's in the live chat right now?
Oh, I guess I should give a shout out. Mr. Dapperton
hey, Daps.
Says play his game Skull Stompers. And for anyone who does not know, I provided the voiceover for the tutorial section of that game. So yes, everyone plays Skull Stompers. I know Daps, I told you I'd do it. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I do want to stream some Skull Stompers on my channel. And we will get to it. So,
is it a game you guys are making together?
Well, Mr. Dapperton made the game. It's his game. I know Shane Killian is also a character in his game. I am not a character in the game, but my voice is the voice of the instructions in the tutorial section of the game.
Okay.
Nice.
So thank you for that, Daps. But yes, if you want to succeed, you have to value performance, not race or gender. If it happens to be the case that mostly white men are the most qualified people and they work the hardest, then by necessity, you're going to hire mostly white men. But you're not hiring them because they're white men. You're hiring them because they're the most qualified. If in some other industry, it turns out that in general, Hispanic men or Hispanic women are the most deserving and create the most revenue for an organization, you will end up hiring mostly Hispanic women. But again, the owner of that business at the end of the day isn't really going to care what the race or gender of his people are, so long as they're performing. Any business that cares more about the race and gender of the people of it hires will absolutely fail in the free market. And the only reason it works in government is because they don't have to please the customer. They can steal via taxation.
Yeah.
So good on Donald Trump for that. All right. He talks about renaming the Gulf. This one won't talk about this a lot. Renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America and renaming
Nice.
Mount McKinley.
That is so petty. Like, keep the Gulf of Mexico as it is currently named.
It's super petty, but it's also one of those things you can't help but love Donald Trump for having the balls to say it. Like, I really don't care whether they call it the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, but I mean, the fact that he has the balls to say something like that in front of the free world, hey, you go for it, man.
I'm too used to freaking Gulf of Mexico. I'm just gonna stick to that probably. I'm going to probably be growing up in my old days, be all like, you young whippersnappers going to the Gulf of America. Back in my day, we called it the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, how many people think he's going to go for annexing Canada, Mexico, and the rest of Central America, along with the Panama Canal?
Well, that's it right here. He talks about we're going to take back the Panama Canal. He doesn't outright say we're going to seize it militarily, but he brings up a valid point. The Panama Canal is extremely important to free trade. And if the Chinese utilize sway over the Panama Canal to shut it down, that could cause huge economic catastrophes around the world. So it absolutely is in America's interest that the Panama Canal remain free to shipping. Now, should he annex the Panama Canal? I don't know, but if the Chinese were to shut it down, it absolutely would merit getting it open again. So, is he actually going to annex Canada and Greenland? I don't know. It would be. I mean, you really think the Canadians are going to put up much of a fight?
I hear some skepticism on that point. I mean, there was some article that I had read of where that I guess Greenland is like a territory of Denmark, that the Danish leader had some skepticisms that Trump will actually pull through on that.
Right. Although it's
Canada
technically Danish territory, it's basically an independent territory of its own. The U.S. already has military bases there.
Right. I mean, that if anything, that was what I was hearing that was more seriously being considered, is that Trump might put some more troops up in whatever base we have up there or something.
Mm-hmm.
He says we're going to launch American astronauts to plant the Stars and Stripes on Mars, which I laughed when I heard that. Can't help but think of the movie Mission to Mars. Who here has seen Mission to Mars?
Right here, I've seen Mission to Mars. Red Planet was also a good movie.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't. I don't know. I feel like with everything going on in the world, putting a man on Mars is kind of the least of our worries right now. But hey, if Elon Musk can do it with SpaceX using private funds, by all means, go for it. All right. Moving on. We're getting towards the top of the hour here, so let's try to get the last few highlights. Talks about American history. Talks about his own political comeback, which is unprecedented in American history, which is absolutely true. Donald Trump is, I think, worth pointing out, Donald Trump is only the second president in U.S. history to hold 2 non-consecutive presidential terms. So it definitely is historical, whether you like the guy or not. Mm-hmm. We're on the verge of the 4 greatest years of American history. America will be respected again, admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you. Thank you all. And that was Donald Trump's. Of course, we didn't read the whole thing, but that was the highlights of Donald Trump's inaugural address. which I thought was, regardless of how you feel about the guy, it was a very inspiring sounding speech. It was certainly more inspiring than anything Joe Biden has said over the past 4 years.
So, I've been hearing supposedly that there was some kind of partisan rhetoric within the speech. Now, obviously, you did not read all of that speech right there, but do you recall anything particularly partisan being spouted off, like, oh, Democrats are evil or something like that?
I don't think in so many. Let me go back to the beginning, kind of some of the parts I skipped over. He more or less, he kind of velvet dagger is the term I would use. Like statements that aren't meant to be overt insults to Biden, but absolutely were. Like overtly, that's not technically what he said, but anybody listening can understand. He basically called Biden the worst president we've had in 100 years.
Oh, the worst in 100, huh? So
let me see if I can find that section.
So worse than Nixon and worse than, well, I guess Woodrow Wilson is outside of the 100-year mark by now.
Yeah. Just outside of it, but outside. You know, I should have a stream at some point and discuss. I think like Ben Shapiro made a video called "The 5 Worst Presidents in American History." I agreed with some of them, but not all. I need to do my own version of that.
Oh, I definitely watched that. Would it be an actual video, or are you talking about a live stream there?
I would like to make a video. I don't have a lot of time for those days, but I might consider it.
Yeah. I might actually devote more of my efforts towards abortion-related stuff.
Okay, so like here, our country can no longer deliver basic services in a time of emergency, as shown by the people of North Carolina, Los Angeles. He basically brings up a lot of disasters that happened under the Biden administration, and without coming right out and saying Biden's at fault.
Okay. He did wear a purple tie, so I think he might have intentions in unity, I believe. You know, it's funny because I actually listened to one episode of Ranting Monkey where they were reacting to some white guy who was wearing purple, and they were just commenting, all purple like silk clothing does not go good on white people. So I wonder how that purple tie looks on Trump.
Nice.
Let's see if I can find a picture for you. Hang on. Images. All right, here we go. Let me get it in a new tab, and I will share my screen.
Oh, it's not as well. I don't know. It might be a low res picture, but
see if
it doesn't look that purple.
Let me get it in a new tab. That better? I mean, it's not like flamboyantly purple, but it is purple.
Okay, never mind. That's not quite as purple as a guy that Monkey and Jack were reacting to. Was there anything more in the live chat that we were going to address?
Let's take a look here. Baron Von Brass, we should give California and New York to Canada. I 100% agree. Good riddance.
Yeah.
Towards the top, Mr. Merchant says, on probably a separate topic, why is it that most conservatives, when it comes to Thomas Sowell, care more about his social and cultural views, but not as much as his economic views? And I don't know about you guys' personal observations, but in my personal observation, I don't think that's quite true, Mr. Merchant. As far as I know, there are lots of conservatives that at least equally take into consideration all of his economic talking points as much as his social stuff, if not more so take his economic talking points into consideration. Probably the most social that it gets is when it comes to tying in like issues of vaguely attaching to race to economic issues, like how like pre-New Deal Black people were like made up less of a share of unemployment and yada yada, those kinds of stats.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to have more context on who you're referring to. I mean, I think perhaps a broader point, a lot of people on the conservative sides of the aisle, people would say, I'm not libertarian, I'm conservative, would say that they would agree with Seoul's social values, but they don't agree. They would be Trumpians in areas like tariffs. I guess there was a section in Donald Trump's speech where he talked about how he intends to institute more tariffs. And I think a lot of conservatives do support tariffs because they don't understand economics. They hear the rhetoric that tariffs protect American industry, and they're like, well, I'm a patriot. I support American industry, so I support tariffs. I mean, that just shows they don't understand the economics behind tariffs, but they want to sound patriotic. So, I mean, I would say probably it's people who support Seoul's values but are economically ignorant. And if they just read his book, Basic Economics, they wouldn't be economically ignorant anymore. So,
and I guess this kind of ties into the TikTok issue and waging like not really so much military wars against China, but a tariff war more than anything. Would you think that, and this also kind of would tie in with the position that you espoused when it came to tariffs back during that one live stream that you and I had right before General Election Day, when we were like covering his interview on the Joe Rogan podcast. You remember that, 2 cents?
Yes, I do.
Like you were talking about the idea of replacing the income tax with a universal tariff on goods. When you said a universal tariff, was you meaning like a tariff on like all goods from all countries, or was you talking about tariffing all goods coming from just one country, for example, like China?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and explain this here for those that don't understand the context. So just in case anyone listening doesn't know what a tariff is, tariffs are an import tax. They're essentially a sales tax on goods that are imported from foreign countries. So what happens is if a ship is coming into the United States, bringing in goods that were made in China, if you tariff those goods, what happens is when that ship comes into the harbor, they have to pay a tax to the United States in order to enter the harbor and sell their goods. It's called a tariff. And at first glance, it may sound like the Chinese are paying that tax because they're paying it to the United States to bring their goods into the United States. However, what people don't realize is when they pay that tax to the United States, they have to recover that money they just lost. So what do? The goods that they were about to sell in the United States, they raise the price of those goods in order to recover the costs that they just paid to the United States. So in turn, although the tax is technically paid by the foreign merchants, it is effectively paid by the American people who now have to pay for higher prices for goods. Now, why historically have tariffs been implemented? Now, typically what we're told is tariffs protect American industry. In other words, if steel producers in America sell their steel for $20, I mean, that's probably ridiculous as far as steel prices, but just it's a hypothetical scenario, so bear with me. I'm selling American steel for $20, but steel imported from India, and not that they're making a ton of steel in India, but just again, hypothetical, is only sold for $10. Well, obviously, Americans are going to buy imported steel from India because it's half the price, and American steel producers will probably go out of business. So what the American government then does is come in and put a steel tariff on imported steel, which thereby raises the price of foreign steel, which makes American steel more competitive in the market. However, what you don't realize is that if Americans had just been allowed to buy the cheaper steel, they would have had more money and could have spent their money on other things, which would have grown the American economy. When you force Americans to pay higher prices for American goods instead of foreign goods, the net result is that Americans have less money. Yes, specific industries, like in this case, the steel industry, will benefit in the short term, but in the long term, the American population as a whole will have less money. So, this is well understood in economics. Basically, for a long time, dating back to the days of Henry Clay and Abraham Lincoln, politicians who supported using tariffs in this way basically employed big name economists to confuse the public about their real intentions. All tariffs really do is benefit certain American industries at the cost of the American taxpayer. Now, what I did say is this: I think typically what we would call a protective tariff, tariffs that are meant to protect American industries, are insanely high tariffs on foreign goods that basically make foreign goods so expensive that it virtually guarantees that the American people will buy American. Those are obviously self-serving tariffs that benefit politicians and their politically connected cronies. I am willing to say that if you wanted to institute uniform tariffs on all goods, not just steel, but basically anything imported into the United States, basically a 10% tariff on all imported goods. If you were to do that as, say, we're going to totally abolish the income tax and replace it with a flat tariff on all imported goods, I think uniform tariffs on all imported goods would be better for the American economy than an income tax, even though at the end of the day, they're all still taxes.
And your position there, it would be like a tariff on all imports of all goods from all countries, not just China?
Yes, a flat rate for all imported goods. I believe that would be more fair than the progressive income tax we have. Obviously, I believe all taxation is theft when push comes to shove, but if you had to ask me which is worse, I would say if we could get rid of the progressive income tax in favor of a flat tariff on all imported goods from all countries, that would be better for Americans than the current progressive income tax that we have.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking of alternative ways to hurt China, since this stream seems to be at least 2 out of 3 against the idea of banning TikTok.
And Damian Wooten points out, before the Constitution was amended in 1913 to allow income tax, tariffs were in fact the main source of federal tax revenue. There was no federal income tax prior to 1913.
Right, I think I heard something about that.
Now, again, when it comes to combating China, I think the U.S. would be better investing more in counter these dangerous narratives that are being spread by the Chinese on TikTok. If they want to fight that, they're better off investing in their own efforts to counter those narratives or provide the true information to the American people rather than just trying to silence it.
You know what would be a real, like, hard-hitting weapon, or, well, I say weapon rather loosely, but rhetorical weapon to use against China is a box office smashing docudrama about Tiananmen Square.
Admittedly, although it would probably get banned in China.
It would get banned in China, but fuck it. That's kind of the point, is to say, fuck you, China. We're going to make like over $500 million everywhere else in the world, and we don't need your market for that. And we're going to expose the truth to not only our people, but also Europeans as well. Maybe everybody will start like being all like, you know what? I think I'm not going to rely on TikTok so much. This feels kind of uncomfortable now. Knowing of what the CCP did, like, what is it, like 30 plus years now in Tiananmen Square, just because people were like protesting for their free speech.
Absolutely.
35 plus years ago. I don't know.
Yeah. Amazing how it's before I was born. So
I believe it was 89. Yeah. Now I'm going to look it up.
All right. Well, on that note, we have reached the hour. So thank you, everybody, for I don't really see any more comments in the chat, so I'll let Darkhan get his information here about Tiananmen Square, and then we'll...
Oh, yeah, it was 89. That's...
okay, 89, yes.
That's it.
All right, well, as always, thank you for tuning into the stream. I genuinely wish Donald Trump the best. Whatever, again, that doesn't mean I'm pro-Donald Trump. I still have a lot of problems with the guy, and I am sure he's going to do a lot of bad things because he's a politician, and I'm black-pilled on government. Let's face it, anyone who takes the House is going to be a net negative. But that being said, I wish him the best. I truly believe America's in better hands with him in charge than Biden in charge. Does that mean I think he's the savior of the world? Absolutely not. But I look forward to a more entertaining next 4 years. And on that note, I think I posted this GIF on something Night Shift posted earlier. Let's go ahead and share this quickly.
Is it a GIF you're sharing?
Yes.
Oh, is it that South Park one?
Yes. May everyone be prepared. Be prepared for the Donald Trump administration.
Be prepared. I go thinking of Scar and his villain song.
Indeed. So somebody needs to superimpose Trump's hat on Scar's face and
and with AI generated Trump voice as well. Be prepared.
Yes.
Absolutely. And perhaps Damian Wooten sums it up. Liberal tears will be glorious. Indeed they shall. Indeed they shall. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. Darkhan, Night Shift, thanks for joining.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's have
for the
another one of
invite.
these. It's been too long. It's not wait as long to have another one of
Heck
these.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, as always, that is my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Bye-bye.